If you're in danger on a cellular level, then you're never going to be able to heal. We have to listen or else we'll miss something.
The things that we hold shame around are often the things that connect us when we share them in a safe space. It can affect so much of your life.
It's so important to listen to our bodies, and we have to work on mindset.
If we don't understand the root cause of the problem, we can't really solve it or attend to it. I know what it feels like to be in that dark hole.
One of my first clients told me that I was the first person who had told them that it wasn't all in their head and it wasn't just anxiety. And they just started crying and they broke down during the video visit. And I'm like, this is why I do what I do.
I just remember a moment where when I was working with my doctor, she went out on maternity leave and things went awry while she was out. And the minute I saw her, I just started crying. I just wanted to be heard.
We do touch on some heavy topics, and you can always check the description for more details on this episode. The TURTZED podcast and content in this episode is presented solely for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes. Neither I nor my guests are healthcare or mental health care providers, and we are not licensed or authorized to provide professional medical advice. For more information, please see our policy at TURTZED.com.
Today, we're going to detox the idea that your body is screaming and no one is listening. Sometimes we have to go beyond traditional medicine, and that is exactly what we're going to do today. Dr. Diana, welcome to TURTZED.
Thanks so much for having me.
It's a pleasure to chat with you, especially because for me, the last almost 2 years of my life have been consumed by mold and parasites and chronic illness and brain fog and all the things that you specialize in. And I think what's interesting about your story is that you kind of started in traditional medicine and have weaved in functional medicine and really on the doctor's side, kind of like had your own journey of what I have been through on the patient side over the last 2 years. And so I'd love to dive in and just start with, how did you decide to get into medicine in the first place? And then we'll dive into the functional part.
I was originally going to be more of a humanities person. Like I had a lot of broad interests, but as I went through college, I just got drawn more and more to medicine. And the reason for that was that I wanted to be a healer. I wanted to help people. So it sounds cliche, but that's, really what I wanted to do. So I decided to do medicine, and I did primary care for a little while. And so it wasn't one of those things where I always wanted to be a doctor. I always wanted to help people, but I just had to figure out like in what way I wanted to do that. So that came up a little bit later for me than for some, but I think it gave me a broader background. And I think that really helped me as a doctor and helped me be able to connect with people better.
I can definitely relate to that on the wanting to help people. I think for me, slightly different. I was in sales, but I felt like I was really able to help people accomplish whatever it was, whether it was fitness or something within business. And I think for me, funnily enough, my whole family is doctors, but I almost failed the only science class I took in college. But I can understand that like desire to find the way in which it feels most authentic to you to help people. I guess from your medical experience, what kind of was the moment where you realized that you didn't want to go the traditional medicine route anymore and you wanted to incorporate the functional route?
I worked in a variety of different offices for several years. So almost 9 years after residency that I was in these various clinics. And I loved seeing the patients. I loved, connecting with them on a daily basis. It's was seeing patients all day and charting all night. And, I still enjoyed it. But as the years went on, I began to see that this healing that I thought I had signed up for was not actually what I was going to be able to do within the medical system, because healing doesn't fit into this 5-minute visit once a year where you just kind of bring it, the patient brings in the list of all the things that have accumulated over that year to a checkup. And then all of a sudden you say, okay, well, this is the, we're referring to you here, we're referring you there. Here's a few prescriptions. And then it's like, I wonder how that person's doing. And the medical system isn't all about continuity and, giving enough time to really figure out root causes. So I was getting that idea, and I was thinking about, okay, how can I still practice medicine while, because I knew I still wanted to practice medicine. I didn't want to give that up, but how can I actually do this and actually help people heal, which is what I want to do in the first place. So I learned about first gut health from a functional angle, due to my husband having a lot of gut issues, and functional medicine and supplements starting to help him more than the prescription side, and us not really resonating with what the regular, GI doctors and stuff were telling us. And then mold happened. We had a mold house, we like to call it, about 10 years ago, where we all started developing various symptoms in the home. At the time, two of my three kids lived in that home. We had, our son was a toddler, and he started getting these very unusual symptoms for toddler. He had fatigue, which is very unusual for a toddler to be tired. Like 2-year olds aren't usually tired. And then also, he was peeing a lot, really frequently. He had wheezing, which is the only thing we kind of connected to the mold, because we knew there was mold, and the landlord did the classic cleaning up job for it, quote unquote. And but we didn't realize that it was causing a variety of different health issues. Like, I had mental health issues, which usually I'm a very optimistic person, and I just got slammed with anxiety, depression, insomnia, and I wrote it off due to maybe stress or maybe postpartum. And then my husband's gut issues were worsening, and he started getting neurologic issues, which were very scary. And then we had an infant. Our daughter, older daughter, was an infant in that home, and she was very colicky. She couldn't sleep well in the home. We had to take her out of the house, drive her around to get her to be able to sleep. And so I firmly believe that if there's an environment in which you're not thriving, your kids aren't thriving, your family's not thriving, then there's something going on with that environment. So we didn't really make that connection for some time. And we actually moved because it was a rental anyway. Thank God the rental was expiring. We moved. And then we started to feel somewhat better. There were some residual issues. And so we got more of a functional medicine workup for my husband. And then when we got these results back, because the regular medicine results had been fairly normal, or something where there was some, medication for it. But the functional health results just shocked me, because I mean, he had mycotoxin levels off the charts. His organic acid test was all messed up. His gut testing was way more comprehensive than the gut testing we had already had done through all of these various procedures and everything else. And so we finally had some clear directions. And so I said, what even is this? Why am I not doing this? What are we even doing in regular medicine if we're not doing this kind of testing? So I then, in my looking back, as a little naive, I thought, oh, great, maybe my group practice can run these tests. So I took this information to the other doctors, and I said, look at these tests, check this out. This is pretty interesting, right? And so they were interested, and I got a meeting with the administration of the clinic, and I brought in some research, and I brought in some info, and I presented it to them. And immediately I was shut down with, oh, yeah, insurance doesn't cover those things. We don't do that here. Like, you can't do that here, basically. So that night, I remember to this day, I went home, and I told my husband, I'm done. Like, I can't do this anymore if this is not somewhere that's going to adapt with the science, and that's going to allow me to get all the information that I need in order to help people. So it took us some time to get out of the system, because I was moving on up in the regular medical system. It's pretty hard to just exit the medical system. But I got out, and I started my own virtual practice, and I've been helping people with gut mold and toxins ever since. And it's just so rewarding, to be able to see people's health transform where the regular medical system has failed them.
As you were talking about it, I think for me, what resonated so much was it kind of outlined what I experienced on the patient side, where luckily I had started with a functional medicine doctor before I had all these different exposures. So there was a continuation of care, and she was able to very quickly acknowledge like something is wrong and like I do see what you're saying. The second piece of it is not really understanding, like, why is my 2-year-old tired? Why is my toddler colicky? Like, and they can only fall asleep in the car. But taking a step further and like, it is so important with everything that we do. My belief as a coach is, what is the root cause of this? Like, where does this stem back to? Because we can put all the band-aids on we want, no matter whether it's medical, whether it's for coaching, for business. If we don't understand the root cause of the problem, we can't really solve it or attend to it. And I think, as you described, like, you had all of these symptoms that you wrote off to postpartum, right? Like, you can attribute it to something else, but it's when you put all of the pieces together and kind of even just the pieces of each of your family members together as a whole, you're like, wait a second, like, there's something bigger here. And I guess from that perspective, one of the things that I'd love to hear more about is just the person who's saying something is off, where they're like, for me, it was, I don't feel depressed, but I have on paper every symptom of depression you can think of. Or, you know, my stomach is just unbelievably upset all the time. I can't figure it out. Where do you start when someone comes in and says something as simple as like, something is wrong and I don't know what it is?
Yeah, I think it's so important to listen to our bodies, and when the body's saying something and when you're feeling something, even if it's as simple as I feel stuck or something's not right, it's worth a thorough root cause investigation. So that for me it always goes back to the symptoms. So I do a thorough intake with pages of questions about symptoms and trying to figure out if there's something that triggered it, whether it be environmental meaning either mold or anything else. Toxins can be toxic relationships, can be traumatic events, can be lots of different things. Prolonged antibiotic use, like any kind of historical thing or current. And then also the labs. So I had referenced the functional medicine workup, and some of the labs that I get are the gut testing, the organic acids test, and toxin tests, because those, while they're easy at home labs, they can give us this full picture of what exactly is going on. What's the body trying to say? What are these whispers that we're trying to hear, and trying to figure out what the next best steps are in order to rebalance, because it's all about, rebalancing the microbiome, getting rid of any toxins, and just becoming more resilient, so that, when we encounter toxins and everything in the future, that we'll be able to come up against them without reacting so much.
I love that you incorporated into that like toxic relationships or um other components similar, because I do think for me, having no medical degree, but just from my own lived experience, they're all intertwined. And even if it's just loss of sleep, like I did not realize, I mean, I did realize because I was just like, I wake up in the middle of the night and I, have complex PTSD and I have sleep issues. But like when you're sleeping 3.5 hours a night and you're trying to function and stay awake, and I was craving foods that didn't make any sense. And like, it was just, I finally got to my breaking point and was like, I don't know what's wrong, but like, I am inflamed. I'm not sleeping. And some of it had to do with sort of relationships and pieces that intertwine. But I also think that that stored trauma can be stuck in your body and wreak havoc just on your nervous system, where it doesn't react properly to those surroundings. from that perspective, I obviously have a very personal attachment to it. But I'd love you to go a little bit more into that sort of aspect of it, because I think people can really understand parasites or mold poisoning, but how do they all sort of connect with that piece that is not environmental or a parasite?
So there's something called the cell danger response. So basically, whenever we're exposed to a threat and our cells microscopically throughout the body can sense that there's a threat, whether it's a toxin in the environment or any kind of increased inflammation or any number of different threats. And the cells will start to release more inflammatory module or mediators and circulate them throughout the body. And if you're in danger on a cellular level, then you're never going to be able to heal. So how I see that play out is when I'm asking people, okay, what happened maybe when your symptoms started? And, we'll have to dig deep because sometimes it's not, you wouldn't immediately correlate a relational occurrence or any kind of, a breakup or something like that, or a big family event or something happening to someone close to you with symptoms getting worse. But it really, really stacks up. And you can't skip nervous system regulation when you're trying to heal. It sounds to people like something, oh, well, can I just do a few breathing exercises maybe, or like a little bit of meditation, like listen to some soothing YouTube or something and be done with it? Sometimes it's a big process and you really can't skip the process either, because I see this time and time again. And if people really listen to this and put this into practice, your future self will thank you. That if you just try to gloss over that piece or just skip it because it's not as cut and dry as, okay, take one capsule of this every morning, then it's just not gonna go as well. So I tend to circle back to it. If I have clients who have a setback, then I'm like, okay, well, have you been working on the nervous system lately? Have you been doing your either breathing exercises or your basic nervous system exercise? Or there's so many different things, but once we find what resonates with them, then they need to keep doing it and stay out of fight or flight. And if you get re-exposed to molds or something like that and something triggers you, then you can come back to that and get out of fight or flight more quickly, because it will happen. Like these things, life happens. So I tend to circle back to it if people say, okay, well, I was feeling better, but now I am not feeling as good, or this weekend something happened and I just can't put my finger on it. I say, okay, how's your nervous system? Like, let's just, check that off really fast, because if that's good, then we can strategize and we can troubleshoot, what else is going on, like supplement wise or dietary or lifestyle or sleep, other things. But let's just make sure that your nervous system is good. We're in a state to heal, because you can't out supplement, you can't out, eat a healthy diet your way out of a nervous system in fight or flight. Like if your body doesn't feel safe, then you're not going to be able to make progress.
I think that that piece of what you do is so interesting. I think it ties to the continuation of care, but it really exemplifies, as a medical professional, truly what it means to listen and listen holistically. As someone who has sort of both experiences, both in the traditional medical practice and this your own practice that's more functional, what does it mean to you to truly listen to someone that you're working with? And why is it so important?
It's key. I mean, listening is really key, and there's a whole nother level because I do everything virtually. So I don't have that in-person interaction to get to know people. So I take extra care with listening because it helps me to get to know them on a similar level than if we were meeting in person. So as I go through with clients and I do the extensive, questionnaires and intakes, um, I think asking all of those different questions about their lived experiences and what their work and what their goals are, and just kind of learning about them and their personality is huge, because that affects how I communicate with them. Because for example, if someone is more of a, okay, just tell me like direct, what to do, versus someone who's like, okay, well, I need to hear like the explanation, and I want to hear kind of the theory behind everything that you're doing, and like I'm a little more cautious. Like I try to get that idea, because if someone feels like they're being guided in the way that they need to be guided, then ultimately their healing is going to be more successful, right? Because if I come with, if I take those two very different people and I give them the same recommendations, then one of them is going to be very frustrated, and then they're just going to say, forget it. So, especially if you've had chronic illness for like years, decades, it's just, you have to take such care with this, because it's your health. It's like the closest thing, it's your body. It's so personal, to people. So I think healing and listening does have to be personal as well, and personalized. And there are people say personalized medicine. Like, yeah, I do that. It's kind of a buzzword, but I definitely personalize my protocols, because cookie cutter approaches don't work. A lot of what I do is foundational, and like I can say, okay, this supplement is going to work for a lot of people because it's just so good for gut health or mold. But if, someone's nervous system is in fight or flight, then we have to work on that first. And perhaps, depending on the situation, one thing may not be right for them that's right for the other person. So we have to listen, or else we'll miss something. That's like the biggest thing. And I've always like, well, I was driving to work in when I used to go into the office, and now when I'm prepping for clients, I pray and I say, like, help me not to miss anything,
Mm.
because there's very complex cases going on here. And I, in some cases, people have seen several doctors, several practitioners. They've done a ton of DIY stuff before they come see me. And it's like, they're always like, what am I missing? And it's like, okay, well, I don't want to miss anything, because something is missing here, right? We need to figure out what's missing, and I don't want to miss anything.
Well, I think that that piece of it is so crucial for so many reasons. I think the first thing is, as a coach, it is so easy to gloss over something that feels very small, but it's typically those very small, nuanced phrasings, or even just a word that someone uses that can unlock a whole piece of the story. And I think that for me, I jokingly say, like, almost like medical gaslighting, where it's like, no, like all the labs are fine. It's like, but they're all relative, right? Like you would have to truly understand, and this goes back to what you were saying with the continuation of care, like where were the labs when things were good, right? Like even just on the most basic blood panel. And I think for me, one thing that I have struggled with the most is brain fog. Like it is still something that I struggle with, even today, like last night, for the first time in probably a decade, I actually couldn't fall asleep. Like I can typically lights out fall asleep. I just would previously wake up at 2 in the morning and be wide awake. Last night, I just couldn't go to sleep. And this morning, I woke up. I knew I was going to be tired. Knew I was going to feel brain fog because I only slept 5 hours. But I understand that nuance now. I'm kinder with myself today because I have been through 2 years of like truly learning to be kind to myself, that like no matter what happens in a day, like I was traveling on Monday, Tuesday, I just couldn't focus. And I was like, okay, I just can't focus today. Like I've been able to be fortunate enough to be able to build my lifestyle kind of around the health issues that I've had. But it's not just being kind to ourselves, it's also when we go into an office, like feeling seen, right? Like I've gone into a doctor's office and I'm like, I'm just exhausted. I don't feel like working out. I have brain fog. I know what depression feels like. I know what it feels like to be in that dark hole. Like I know that it feels like this would be depression, but it's not there mentally. It just feels like the symptoms of it. I am so appreciative that you're out in the world having those conversations, because I have left so many doctor's appointments saying like, no, I know something's wrong. I think that so many people can give up and they're just like, well, this is my new normal. I mean, I almost got to that point and I had an amazing team of doctors that were helping with all these different components. What would you recommend to someone who is feeling that way?
Yeah. So the first thing is to find someone like myself who will listen, because it's so important to have someone in your corner like that. And the really huge thing that I would encourage people to do, once you find someone that you resonate with their message, you know that you're plugging in with the right program, I would say we have to work on the mindset. So, because once you decide to go forward with a healing program, then it's also your responsibility to not stay in that stuck mindset. So, once you feel like, okay, this, you have to decide that you trust the process and to trust the provider you're working with, and to not give up, because it is a healing process and these things are not quick fixes. Like, I do get messages like, oh, I literally felt myself go out of fight or flight today and my body let this collective sigh. I felt just this sense of relief. Or, oh my goodness, I love this supplement. Like, I started taking this and I just feel, I felt like the fog lifted, or I felt I didn't have like a food coma anymore. Or like I could sleep for the first time in years, I could sleep well, or things like that. I get those messages, and but it's not like, oh, overnight, you feel like you did when you were a teenager, right? We have to not get discouraged while you're in the healing process, because it's not linear, but it should be generally on the up and up, but not gonna be straight up. So I challenge people a little bit whenever I get messages like, oh, this weekend was so rough. And it's like, I get that, but we're not going to stay in that space. And I really like to encourage people. I have like an encouragement highlight videos on my Instagram. This is the thing with me. I like to encourage people. And, if you're not in that, if you're not on that frequency, like, just watch out, because if you're willing to get to that frequency, like, I'm gonna get you there. So but if not, that's your choice, right? So it's so important to decide that you're resonating on that higher frequency. And when you do, like, I started working with a client recently, and I knew he was going to get some quick wins and some quick gains in his health, because he said he was all in, and he's just like, I'm so confident that this is what I need to do right now.
Mhm.
And then, like, he's already feeling better, because it's like he decided that he was gonna feel better, basically. And I mean, it sounds like, what's that gonna do? Oh yeah, it matters. So if you decide that this isn't working, like, nothing's working, then you have to mind over body sometimes. And we have to have the right protocol, of course, but like, it doesn't work as well if you're like being negative all the time.
I can say this from my perspective. I felt like the only thing I had to talk about was mold poisoning, bacteria, parasites, E. coli. I felt like even once that part was taken care of, I couldn't explain the brain fog. I couldn't work out. I couldn't even edit a podcast without forgetting what I had just watched. And it really took a toll on me emotionally. It took a toll on my identity. And I really lost trust in my body that it could support me and function. What does the work look like to help someone start to trust their body again, and then also trust their intuition around their body when something might be off?
I think a big part of that is leaning into seeing what worked and maybe what didn't work for someone, and saying, okay, well, look how this worked for you. Look how, your body isn't failing you. Look how your body, which is our home, it's the only place we have to live. Look how, strong and courageous you've been. It's definitely a process, because, again, this is years, sometimes decades of misunderstood medical mysteries that have been going on for people. And there's so many layers.
What advice would you give someone who is struggling today and they're not sure where to start?
Find someone who will listen, because there are limitations to the medical system, and it's just not made for this sort of thing. And you're not really going to, at this point, I do think functional med is the future of primary care, but it's not there yet. So
2000,
you're really not
2050.
gonna, yeah, I know it's gonna take some time. Yeah, I mean, you're not gonna get this kind of thing from your regular primary care visit. And I think that's what, people think about, oh, these doctors that used to like do house calls and like this kind of thing that maybe primary care sort of was trying to be, but it couldn't really be because of insurance, and stuff like that. So, I would say listen to your body, and, I would say do functional medicine, see a functional medicine doctor. It's, you know, it, it's so key. It's so helpful. And even if you're like, okay, I can't, do that financially right now, then, follow us, follow some of us, follow me, and like, watch some of my free stuff. I have so many free resources out there. It's insane.
So, with everything that we've talked about today, what is the message that you want to leave people with?
So I would say your symptoms aren't all in your head, and you're not crazy. Your body's trying to tell you something. And when we stop chasing just a diagnosis and start asking why symptoms are breaking down, and why, what your body's trying to tell you from your gut, toxins, system perspective, then that's when we can really get a hold on it, and where you can really start to regain trust in your body's ability to heal and actually start seeing those health breakthroughs.
I love that. And what is something that someone's told you that's impacted your life and you'll never forget?
So, one of my first clients told me that I was the first person who had told them that it wasn't all in their head and it wasn't just anxiety. And they just started crying and they broke down during the video visit. And I'm like, this is why I do what I do. And so, I that was, at the very beginning, when I was like, what am I even doing, leaving the medical system, and it's like those moments where people are like, you're the only one who has helped me really get, where I wanted to be, to where I wanted to be. It's those moments that just stick with me. And that's why I do what I do.
I have been the patient on the other side of the screen. I just remember a moment where, when I was working with my doctor, she went out on maternity leave and things went awry while she was out. And the minute I saw her, I just started crying. Like, she didn't even say hi. But I think that for me, I felt safe. I knew that she was going to figure out how to start to rebalance. I knew I would be heard. I knew I would be seen. And I am so appreciative that there are people like yourself who really care and want that continuation of care and are not just trying to solve a symptom, but get to the root cause and build a healthier lifestyle. And I really appreciate what you do. Now we turn the tables and you can ask me any question that you want.
I love your podcast, and you speak with people, health, mindset, different experiences, and super interesting. So I would ask you, from all these interviews you've done, or just from your life, what's a belief that you consistently see, or a trend of a belief that, sounds like a good idea, but actually keeps people stuck?
Oh, that's such a great question. I think it's shame. I think that what I have seen the most across coaching, across the podcast, my own personal lived experience, shame is the thing that holds us back on so many levels. If you are holding on to that shame, it can affect your nervous system, it can affect your mental health, it can affect your physical health, it can affect so much of your life. It also disconnects us, and it doesn't allow us to heal and move forward if we're constantly thinking about the things that we hold shame around. And from this podcast, especially, I think that the premise from day one was the things that we hold shame around are often the things that connect us when we share them in a safe space. And I feel so privileged that people are willing to share their stories and share their expertise because, to your point, you don't have to, right? Like, you have a ton of things that you could be doing besides spending an hour with me. And I'm appreciative that you're not only willing to share your expertise, but you're able to share truly where it started for you and where you experienced difficulties in your life. And I can only imagine how scary that was, not only for yourself, but to watch your kid struggle or like not really understanding why your 2-year-old is tired. Like, I can't get that out of my mind because in my head, I'm like, 2-year-olds run around like crazy. Like, I don't know that I have the energy for a 2-year-old, but that is so vivid in my mind of like something is wrong. And so I think that as a general premise, I think the thing that holds us back in life and as society is not talking about the things that we hold shame around. And I think part of that is also because it can feel like too much for someone to listen. And I think that on the other side of it, like, it's it's not something that you can fix. It's not something that you have to comment on. For me, a lot of the times, like, I just want it to be heard. And I don't mean in the sense of like responding and all these things. Like, even if I was talking into a wind tunnel, like, if someone could just hear it somewhere in the world and be there with me in that moment, like, sometimes that's all you need. And so I think shame has a varying degree to it, but I truly believe that the thing that holds people back is shame.
I agree. Thanks for that.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It was such a pleasure to have you, and I'm excited to personally dive into your free resources, but also to let people know that those are available and you're sharing those every day on social media.
So much. It was a pleasure.
Do yourself a favor and hit that subscribe or follow button because trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. And if today's episode got you thinking, laughing, crying, or maybe even rolling your eyes, write a review and tap to rate. Now let's be real. This convo doesn't end here. Hit us up on socials and don't be shy. Slide into our DMs. We love to connect. Thanks for hanging with us today and catch you on the next one because our journey together is just getting started. Remember, stay curious, live authentically, and keep turtzing it up.